Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Career Crash Course. I'm Erica Starke-Knight, here to share yet another what you need to know conversation if you are considering a career in the media industry. As you know, I've been in the business for over 30 years, and I've decided to invite some of my friends who are making it happen to have some real talk with me about their profession. Today's topic will be writing and producing, and I've invited my friend Ayana Sadler to join us. She is the Associate Brand Marketing Manager at Pair Excel, which is a clinical research organization in Research Triangle Park. Welcome, Ayana.
Hey, thanks for having me, Erica.
Thank you for joining us on Career Crash Course.
Thanks. I'm so excited to chat with you and discuss everything that you know about the production industry.
Excellent. Thank you. So I want to say before we even get started, Ayana, you worked with me as an intern.
Yes.
You were a student at NCCU. So I thought it only appropriate to have you come and join this conversation and share kind of what you learned, some of your experiences, and you are also in the media industry. So you can talk a little bit about your career as well.
Yeah. And honestly, it started with you, I feel like. I remember that time that I was interning with the communication office at Central, and you were doing an interview on our Fab Lab. And after the interview, I was like, Erica, I have to understand what you do in the day-to-day and how can I become an intern. And from that point, I was able to get an internship with UNCTV, all thanks to your support.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was a great decision to have you on. And I should point out, if you guys don't know already, UNCTV is now PBS NC.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, again, working with you directly, being able to shadow you on your day-to-day at UNCTV, I think it would be great for the students to know. And for my first question, just to understand how you got into the industry and what did those steps look like for you to become a producer?
How I got into the industry. Well, I knew I wanted to be in communications and wasn't exactly sure actually which track I wanted to take, which is part of the reason I created this career crash course, because it's so broad, right? And so having exposure to all the different paths in the profession, I thought would be really helpful. And for me, I was able to do that at UNCTV as an intern there. And I was exposed to not only just the professions and having the conversations like we're doing now, but actually working in those different areas. So I was a teleprompter operator. I was a floor manager. I was a line producer. I learned how to edit. I was on camera. And so I was able to decide doing all those things. Don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Love that. Never want to do that, etc. But I did get that internship, which was really valuable. And that helped me hone in on what I wanted to do, which actually was editing when I first started, because that was a way to kind of bring the vision of the producer's mind, to reality on the screen. So I was really interested in doing that as well. But changed over the years. I decided producing was the way to go, because after I left UNCTV, I moved to New York. And when I said, I want to be an editor, they said, you have to join a union, and that costs $5,000. And I moved to New York with $400. So that was not going to happen.
Not at all, especially not in New York.
No, exactly. So that's kind of how I started on the producer track, is because I couldn't afford to be an editor. And I had learned, working at that internship, how to do a little bit of everything, which turned out to be invaluable.
Yeah. I think producing is such a fundamental skill, especially as a communicator, because it just, goes across so many industries. But even just taking a step back, I feel like internships are also very pivotal to an emerging leader's career. So can you kind of expand on the importance of that, and what did the steps look like for you to secure an intern, and how did it really help you to solidify what you wanted to do in your career?
Sure. Well, I mean, these days, I think paid internships means so many different things. And you have to normally go out and look for those opportunities. I was really blessed and fortunate that there was a gentleman, Jimmy Bullock at UNCTV, visited North Carolina Central University every year and came to the communications department and told us about the station, the programs, the opportunities, and anyone who was interested in an internship just had to fill out the application, and I got a call back. So that was a unique and rare, I think, opportunity where the internship came to me.
Right.
But I would say, again, it's invaluable. And even if you can't get a paid internship, and if you don't get an internship at all, if you're interested in a specific field, then you study those people. You watch, if you want to be an editor, you watch, TV. One of my mentors, Scott Davis, used to tell me, turn on the TV and then turn the volume all the way down and watch how fast and frequently the shots change. And that's because you have to try to keep everyone engaged when they're watching. You don't just keep the same scene up for, 45 seconds.
Right.
You watch movies, you watch commercials. Now you can go to YouTube, editing 101. There's all kinds of things you can learn. So you can self-educate.
Right.
You don't get an internship. And then you just, you have to take initiative. If it's something you're interested in, send an email. Right. Ask if you can volunteer at an event, ask if you can shadow, talk to the professors in your department and ask, for leads. But if you can't get an internship, there's so many resources available, I think now, that you can get your own education in addition to school until you get that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think another really good point that you mentioned is beyond trying to find an internship is being able to network and, taking full advantage of opportunities whenever they present themselves. So I think that is very fundamental, especially as you kickstart your career. Do you want to expand more on that? Like, as a producer, you're going to constantly have to be networking and finding the right story and finding the right pitch. How do you break out your comfort shell and be able to do that? What does that look like?
Absolutely. Well, if you are shy and introverted, producing may or may not be for you. Yes. And you can make it work. So let me just say that. But if you are, let me flip that. If you are extroverted and you enjoy talking to and meeting new people and coordinating and telling stories, if you have those things naturally as a part of who you are, then a career as a producer would be really something I would say to consider. But you're right. You have to find a story. What makes a good story? Usually my litmus test was, is this interesting to me? Because if it's boring to me, it's probably going to be boring to everybody else. And then, once you decide, okay, this is a story I want to tell, the second thing, which I think is very important, number one, is determine who your audience is. Is it young people? Is it women? Is it men? Is it a certain ethnicity? Is it people who enjoy dance? Is it, intellectuals? Are they little kids? So before you start a story, you figure out who you want the target audience to be. And then everything you do from that point is how you, proceed. And so you do have to, all right, this is the story. Say I want to do a story on peaches. All right. I did one. It's called Johnson's Peach. Everybody.
I remember. Yes.
You remember that?
Yes, I do.
But so what do you want? You want to tell them, you want to make it something. When you're producing a story, what I always try to do is share information that you can't find on your own reading on the internet, on the website. So you want to tell things and show things that you can't find online. Otherwise, why would they bother watching your story, right?
Exactly.
And when you're producing, I'm a big fan of what's called nat sound only packages. And nat sound means natural sound. Is the natural sound of a truck driving down the peach orchard, or, some of the pickers talking about what they're doing, as opposed to using a voiceover, also called a narrator or narration. If, in my opinion, when you're telling the story about something, let them tell the story. They're the experts, right? You don't need me to hear a voiceover. So I like nat sound packages. So as a producer, you find people who are articulate and engaging that would make you want to listen to them, right? So you have to search and find and do pre-interviews. You know, you've done that before in the story that you produced there at UNC TV, but definitely a lot of talking, a lot of coordinating, a lot of planning, and telling great stories.
Yeah. And that's a good segue to my next question. Of course, you have 20 plus years in production, but you also
30,
have
girlfriend, going on 35.
30. Okay.
I don't look it.
I'm aging you backwards. Yeah.
Thank you.
Aging you backwards. But I say all that to say, beyond being a producer, you've been a writer as well. So I think that is also a huge key. So how do you encourage emerging leaders to understand how to be writers, how to pay attention to those courses so that they're able to project a good story?
Good question. Good question. When I was a student at North Carolina Central, we did not have media broadcasting. We had print journalism only, a newspaper. And I knew I didn't want to write for a newspaper, but I at least learned how to write stories. So that is so, so critical. What you will hear often in television series and in film, you will have non-Black writers writing for Black series or films. That doesn't mean that you have to be Black to be able to tell a Black story well, but if you are, you bring that experience to the screen. I think Green Book is a prime example, which won the Academy Award, I want to say, won an Oscar. Did you see that, the Green Book? I
can't recall, but if not, that's something I'm going to have to go back and watch. So I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, one of the main criticisms was, you know, that the story focused on the white man who was the driver, helping tell the story of this Black man. This is a true story. Shirley was his name, and I can't remember. I have to look that up, but he was an incredibly talented classical musician, and he was riding around the South, being driven around the South because he wanted to perform for his people, his community, you know, not the upper white affluent folks that he's performing for. But the story was told from the perspective of the white driver. And the criticism was, you can tell that that wasn't his perspective. You know, it would have been a completely different story if that had been written by someone African-American,
right,
who could speak and tell it from the artist's vantage point. Same thing with The Help. I don't know if you heard this or not, but Viola Davis came out, I think a year or so ago, saying that I don't know if she used the word regret, but was having second thoughts about doing the film The Help, which was, I thought, a great film.
Same.
But her point was, it was told from the perspective of the white reporter, right? And not the perspective of the maids. So all that to say, when you learn how to write and you can write your own stories and you can present them, so you can eliminate stereotypes, you know, you can include, you know, from your own personal experience. So, and then writing, you know, you can, when you learn how to write, that works in television, in film, in radio, on YouTube. Being a good writer gets you in the door. Even if you want to be on camera, or if you want to be a videographer, or, you know, writing is the entryway. So I can't stress that enough. And I think I said that to you often when you were interning with me.
And I was just going to piggyback off of that comment, because even beyond writing, it comes out in the way you speak as well. So I remember just saying, for instance, you always used to get at me about mine and mines. Like, do not say mines. Yes, mines is not a word. We're not going to be saying that.
I said it with love.
Yeah, you did. You said it with love. But that's just something that's automatically embedded in my mind now. And because I've advanced as a writer, I've also advanced as a speaker because of that. So it kind of goes hand in hand, because like you said, whether behind the scenes or in front of the camera, you're able to better articulate if you know grammar, when to pause, how to write, et cetera, et cetera.
And can I piggyback on that, Ayana? You also, when you know, a lot of people might think that writing is, you know, writing a script from whole cloth. You just make it up. And it's not. When you do interviews with folks for your story, and then you transcribe them, which I'm a big fan of transcribing interviews. You transcribe everything you say, and then it's like reading a story. You get to cut and paste, pick the sound bites that you want. And once you put those into a script format, the story's written by using their words. But to me, in my experience, it's so much easier to do that when you have all of the words in front of you, and then you can, choose and select, this goes with this. Let me cut this part out. Let me bring this in. But if you're doing it just by trying to listen to it, it takes so much longer. And God forbid, if you have to go back and edit and change something, you have to go and listen to it again, as opposed to just doing a word search and finding that section that you're looking for, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And even though I'm not in the production field anymore, or I do a different type of production now, that was like a huge component. And it has shown that it's relevant across all fields, because that is mainly what I do now, is transcribe. But I find that the best stories come from transcription. Like you said, when you go ahead and listen to the audio, you transcribe it, you're able to write the story, and you're able to shape it around the interviewee, and it makes it so much more personal, and allows them to tell their story versus you trying to interject and make it this and that. But it's just a great technique. And even when it comes to production, I found, like you said, your suggestion of transcribing in advance, so you don't have to go through and re-listen to all the audio. You already know where that clip is in order to pull the videos and the bit pieces that you need in order to create a great segment. So
now, really, how was your experience with that? I remember, I think.
At first it felt like nails on a chalkboard.
Were you cursing me?
No, never. But over time you get used to it. And again, it really helps to shape your story. So it hurts at first, but once you continue to do it, you really do understand the process behind it and the importance of it, to where it does not feel like nails on a chalkboard.
Now, you produced a story. Do you remember the story you produced, and how did the transcribing help you?
It was the Drive for Diversity segment that we did together about the NASCAR diversity program for the crit crew. Yep. And I remember producing it from beginning to the end with your support, us going out to NASCAR in Charlotte and watching them do their thing in the pit, and speaking to the pit crew team about what their day-to-day looks like. And then from that point, directing the cameraman, getting the sound bites, asking questions over and over to get a really good story. And then coming back to UNC TV, transcribing all of the video content that we had captured, and then from there building out the video. But really good experience, and I'm still doing it now.
Oh, and you did a great job. That was a great story.
Yeah, it was a really good story. So again, thanks to your support. And another thing that I feel like you mentioned, which is a really good point, is that when it comes to communication, I feel as though there is a lack of Black and brown people in the industry. And because we are talking to students at Central, can you expand more on why it's important to see people that look like you in the field, and how you take pride in that?
Oh my gosh, you are so right. It's such a sense of pride to be able to be in the background. A lot of folks always want to be on camera, which there is certainly some joy and excitement in being on camera, when people turn on the TV and they see your face. But I found it to be just as exciting, if not more, in my opinion, to be in the background, choosing the stories that are seen. Because, how many times have we seen the Oscars so white? Or, there's so many sitcoms on NBC or ABC or CBS or pick whatever, or on Netflix. And Netflix is actually doing a great job.
Yeah.
Say that. but there's not a lot of us minorities, not just Black people, minorities who are the showrunners, who are coming up with the show ideas, who are writing the scripts. So we can make sure that those stereotypes don't continue to be perpetuated, you know, for this group of people or this group of people. The fact is there's more women in the industry now telling our stories from our perspective. It doesn't mean that the stories that are told by men aren't good stories, but we bring an entirely different perspective and view to those stories. So big ups to Shonda Rhimes and Ava DuVernay and Reese Witherspoon, you know, who are creating a legacy. You know, we are just, there's not even a lot of women videographers who are running camera. And I love that about Ava. You know, she's making sure that there's writers, there's videographers, there's editors who are also women, just giving us the opportunity, right? So there's enough room, there's enough content for all of us to be at the table. But my friends and I have been in the business for, I think 35 years now. But my friends and I would always say, my melanin friends, that we won't ever leave the industry until we pass the torch and bring someone else behind. And I have an example. I was doing a story about nature versus nurture, meaning peer influence versus your parental influence. And for whatever reason, we were in an arcade. We were in an arcade getting video of kids playing video games. And I'm with a white cameraman. And, you know, he's going around the arcade and getting different shots of kids playing all different types of games. And so when we get into the edit suite, and that's one of the fun things about being a producer, is you get into the edit suite with the editor and you say, okay, I want to use this, 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 and this. Obviously, it's a collaboration. I should say that too, but the final word is usually with the producer. So you can give them a script. Here's all the sound bites. You know, you want to give them some autonomy to create. So you say, you know, just cover this with images that fit. So I did that one day and I came back to look at the story and there was a long shot, it felt long to me, of two young Black boys in the arcade playing a shoot 'em up game with a rifle. Normally that would be okay to a lot of people, but as a Black person, knowing that that stereotype is perpetuated, that Black guys are dangerous and are always shooting guns. That's what you always see on the news.
Right.
I didn't want that in this story. And I asked him to please change that shot. And when I explained why, he totally got it and changed it with no problem. And so it wasn't that he was intentionally trying to perpetuate the stereotype, but it's not even at the top of his mind. It's just a shot of boys playing guns, but they're Black boys. And in the Black community, and everywhere, if you turn on the news, that's what you see. So that is, you know, another, you know, something I'm really proud of, to have us in these calling the shots, if you will.
Yeah. And that is something that I see a lot of organizations trying to embrace more, is diversity and inclusion, so that we're able to get a holistic view of what, you know, Black and brown people feel, even, you know, others that identify as other, and et cetera, just to have that voice, because it's so important. But even to that note, I think is a really good question to tack on, being able to wear multiple hats, and seeing different perspectives. And I think a lot of times we can kind of get pigeonholed into thinking like, oh, I'm good at this, so I just need to stick to this. So how do you kind of embrace trying different tasks or trying different parts of the job to diversify your experience?
Oh, yes. There is a song by, oh gosh, I think it's Shakira. I'm not sure, but it's called Try Everything. It's the last song in the movie Zootopia, which I love.
Yes, that was Shakira then.
Right?
Yeah, that
Try
was Shakira.
Everything.
Yeah.
And I love that song, but that's so true. When you are interested in an industry, whether it's communications or anything, learn your craft, learn everything, which is what I found so beneficial when I was an intern at UNC-TV. But you don't have to have an internship to learn editing 101, writing 101, producing 101, on-camera talent one-on-one, because if you understand every part of the process, then when you do get in the role or the profession that you choose, you'll know what to expect, what to ask for, what's reasonable, what's unreasonable, because you know how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so beneficial. And again, that could be your entryway. If there's an opportunity to join an organization as a volunteer, as a production assistant, you want to be able to say yes when someone says, does anybody here know how to? Yes, I do.
Yeah, yeah.
And even if you're not an expert, but you have an idea, you know what it takes to edit, you know a little bit of Premiere, you know a little bit of how to frame a shot. Even if you've never shot with a camera, you know what good framing looks like. If you study that, look at my picture right here and yours. Look at headroom. You don't want to have too much headroom. You know, you don't want it to be blurry. You don't know a lot. You might not be an audio engineer, but you know that you need to have a microphone close enough to you where there's no ambient sound. You need to know that you can't always fix things in post. Whatever you shoot, that's what you're going to get. You know, so even if you don't know how to do it, if you know about it and learn about it, you will go so much farther, so much quicker. My mentor, Scott Davis, taught me when I interned there to make myself indispensable. So you want people to say, you want Erica on your team. She can do this, she can do this, she can do this. She understands this. Even if you can't do it, you understand it. Can't stress that enough.
Yeah. And I definitely feel like at UNCTV, with you guys standing behind me, that's something that you guys really push. Like, hey, Ayana, even if you don't fully know it, you don't have to be a perfectionist, but just try it. It helps to build your CV. It helps to build experience, and it helps to narrow down what it is that you really like. So that is so true. But another really good...
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. What was that, Erica?
I was going to say, and again, you have to be willing to put yourself out there. So I've worked in commercial television. I've worked at CBS. I've worked at ABC. I've worked at Oxygen. I've worked at Court TV and Discovery. And, you just challenge yourself, and that's the only way you're going to learn is, like you said earlier, get out of your comfort zone. So I had been a producer for years, but I've been around directors and executive producers and videographers, so I don't know if I pitched a show or my boss did, but March Madness. If there are any Discovery fans out there, there was a show called Puppy Bowl that they created, which was in alignment with the Super Bowl. And literally it was a set that looked like a football field and puppies were running around all over, and they had puppy cams. It was a 3-hour show. Puppies don't talk.
Yeah.
They don't do anything. The ratings were through the roof.
I can watch that from beginning to the end.
And people did. And I'm talking like this show went on for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
So I was working for Discovery Health Channel at the time. So my boss and I came up with this idea of March Madness. He was a basketball fan. So he was like, instead of March Madness, and it was Discovery Health, let's do Baby Madness. So we created a set that looked like a basketball court, and we came up with all these different segments. We had a race a diaper derby where they'd race. We would sit them in chairs and they would eat peas or eat chocolate. And I cast a child psychologist and CBS sports anchor Jim Brown. He was one of the on-camera talent. I was producing, and he would call the game with the babies, just like he would call, a basketball game.
Right.
I had a halftime show where I got one of those little baby cars and put them in there waving, and we had cheerleaders. So it was really, producing as a way to exercise your creativity, and they were loving it, all for it. But I had 6 cameramen, jib cameras, handheld cameras, cameras on tripods. I believe we had 64 babies. And so I put them in 3 different groups: 0 to 3-year-old, 3 to 6-month-old, 6 to 9-month-old. And anytime a baby would start crying or pooped in their pamper or have a, whatever, I'd call my AP, okay, there's a green room, bring in a new baby, substitute.
Yeah.
That was so fun, but it was, a lot of people would think that was stressful. And maybe it was a little bit because there was an ice storm that day. But again, 6 cameras, 64 babies, parents, 3 anchors, and I'm producing and directing behind the scenes. And it was exhilarating. I had never done that before. And it's one of my most fond memories because I challenged myself and I had a ton of support, executive producers, et cetera. But, it gave me that much more confidence. So if you stay in your zone, in your lane, and are afraid to grow, you won't ever be able to fully realize the creativity that's in your heart and in your mind. But I could talk forever, so we should probably wrap this up.
And I guess my last question for you, and I found this to be very important throughout the course of, my academic and my professional journey, is to have a mentor. I still talk to you today when it came to me needing a letter of recommendation for a job or a letter of recommendation for graduate school. I knew that I could always come to you. Or even when I was going to my internship in Iowa, I was like, hey, Erica, this is what I'm doing. What should I take advantage of whenever I do this internship here? And you've been there to talk, you've been there to chat. And even for this segment, for instance, you contacted me. So we always keep that engagement going. But can you just kind of emphasize why it's important to have a mentor or somebody that you can speak to about professional academic endeavors or even personal to help, put you ahead?
Oh, yeah. And to help you grow, in addition to put you ahead, I can't stress enough the value of always having people around you that you can learn from, right? You never want to be the smartest person in the room. You need to find some other folks, but to continue to spark that creativity, to give you ideas if you're approaching a scenario that you haven't encountered before, someone that you trust who is doing exceptionally well, that you admire, things that you would like to do that they've done, find that person. And now you have LinkedIn, which you can link to people that you don't even know and just say, hi, my name's Ayana, and I'm interested in doing X. Would you mind having an informational interview? Or again, you and I, because we work together with you as an intern, and then, asking me, hey, Erica, I'm interested in doing this. Do you know anyone? I just set up one of my young college friends with an interview at the vet school at NC State. She wants to be a veterinarian, a former colleague of mine. So, mentors not only help you grow, help you learn, help you get connections, but they can also check you. Like, okay, because I definitely have a couple of friends where I would call and say, this is what I want to do with this story. I'm sure I'm going to get some pushback, but what do you think?
Yeah.
Or if somebody came back to me and had some feedback about my script or my story, and I was feeling some kind of way, before I respond to that person, I would go to someone I trust, a mentor, and say, this is how I took this. Am I tripping?
Yeah.
Right. So you just want to have that person to help you level set and have real talk with, and then, I'll leave it at that. And I hope that you are paying it forward, and you already were when you were interning. You ran an organization with a Boys and Girls Club called Smart Girls.
Smart Girls, yeah.
And you brought them in and exposed them to what it's like to be in a television studio. And they were all Black kids, and you made sure that they got to meet other folks, not just me, a Black producer, but Thomas, a Black director. So exposure is key. And the only way we're going to get more minorities in this field of writing or producing or motion graphics or social media marketing, whatever, is expose them. So pay it forward is what I would always say. The way I feel like I hope I've done with you, you do the same.
Yeah. Well, this is an awesome segment, and I'm so excited for everybody at Central to see it, because like you said, we do need more diversity in the field, and beyond being a doctor and a lawyer, which I feel like are very important fields, there's so many opportunities in mass communication, in marketing, in producing, and et cetera, for Black and brown people to excel in. So keep up the great work, and I'm excited for everybody at North Carolina Central to see this.
Thank you, Ayana, for joining me and participating in this conversation. So proud of you. And thank you all, everybody, for joining us for another career crash course. Until Till next time, be well.
All right, bye.
Bye.